The reason I am so hyped for this Elbaf war goes back to when Vice Admirals wanted to go to Elbaf and of course continue the battle with the Yonko Straw Hat Luffy, but Saturn said nah, chill. Only for him to get packed out by Imu himself, who was pissed off because of Joy Boy's haki surging through his body with that PTSD from the Void Sentry being felt. Now Imu has obviously sent this Shanks lookalike to finish the job that Saturn couldn't, which surprised me because, let's be honest here, if it was a hard job for Rob Lucci, CP0's strongest agent, Kizaru, the strongest admiral, other than Akainu, who's of course the fleet admiral, so Kizaru technically is the strongest admiral, and Saturn, a mythical Conqueror's haki user that had powers bestowed upon him by Imu, that's the whole reason why he got packed out. Let's be honest here, who called the other Gorseys as well with the similar powers as him, and we saw Workery, how monster he was, and Venus Drew and Mars, yo, those three looked incredibly powerful, and they couldn't do nothing to stop what was going on in Egghead Island, but they did try their best to help out. And now you're sending these two Holy Knights, like they can do the job, like they can match up. Unless this Holy Knight has Figarland Garling's power from his prime God Valley days, plus newly bestowed powers perfect in countering Luffy, plus of course the mental damage of looking exactly like the red hair Shanks that's Luffy's role model. Yes, there's a lot of things we can talk about, and personally I feel like Imu better have something planned. He knows Joy Boy and the Nika powers so well, he better have something planned for how he's gonna stop Luffy and Elbaf. And this Shanks lookalike, is it gonna be enough? We'll do a deep dive on the new villain or the strongest Holy Knight that has reached Elbaf in the end of the last chapter. Now, of course, Oda has recently given us a statement for what to expect for the future of One Piece. He says this: as for the manga, we finally arrived in Elbaf. It's a laid-back kingdom, but the serenity is about to be shattered by the arrival of a particular man. Meanwhile, there will be tumult in other seas as well, and at last, the one guy will begin shaking up the world. Take a deep breath now, because soon you may not be able to come up for air. Please look forward to a super year of One Piece in 2025. Now, I already talked about how Monkey D. Dragon could be the man that shakes up the world. I haven't talked about tumult in other seas, which I'm going to do in another video, but I want to talk about how it says it's a laid-back kingdom, but the serenity is about to be shattered by the arrival of a particular man. That man is obviously the Shanks lookalike, Figarland Garling connections, the strongest Holy Knight, the one we saw in the silhouette. It's obviously him. And why is he so special? I don't know. I'll be honest, I've been thinking about it for so hard, and I still don't have an answer, guys. So today's video, we're gonna try to get this answer with the help of you guys in the comment section and me doing my research. This is gonna be one of my funnest deep dives I do on the channel. Now, Oda has a specific way of doing things post-time skip when it comes to his villains during the arc. You can necessarily say now they're not all totally villains, but they are the two big antagonists for the arcs. And he didn't do it in Fishman Island. He didn't do it in, of course, Punk Hazard to the extent of which he did in the other major arcs. But you could say maybe with Hody and of course Vanderdecken, and then of course Punk Hazard with Caesar and Virgo. You could say that, but I like to focus more on the major arcs. And the first one is Dressrosa, where we see Doflamingo, the warlord, conquered haki user, awakened Delphoid ability, of course former celestial dragon, and of course the admiral in Fujitora, newly appointed admiral. And this kind of reminds me of like a teaser of Saturn and Kizaru, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, Dressrosa, Doflamingo's a big bad, and of course after Luffy beat Doflamingo in a hard-fought fight, he actually tells Fujitora, he doesn't run away from him, he tells him that I will deal with you because I'm going to become the Pirate King. I have to take on you, Yonko and Admiral. So I thought that was a really good touch to the arc of Dressrosa. I loved it. Then of course there's also Whole Cake Island, and Whole Cake Island was a very unique one because the main antagonist was actually not the main villain. And the way I'm gonna explain that is Katakuri was the main antagonist, of course, having that big fight with, of course, Luffy during Whole Cake Island, one of the greatest fights in One Piece, if I must add. He had Conqueror's haki, he had an awakened Delphoid ability, he had an advancement in Future Sight, an Auspicious haki that gave him Future Sight. He was a really good villain, and he definitely was proving to Luffy that you are not ready to go against the Yonko, because the other big bad villain was his mom. Yes, his mom, Big Mom, was the actual true villain, and Luffy could not deal with Big Mom. But Oda did the same trope he did in, of course, Dressrosa, and of course Whole Cake Island. That's why Katakuri asked, are you gonna come back to take on my mom? Like, he knows like Big Mom is the true villain of this arc, and Oda is doing this two-step program and a two-step verification, if you must add, with these two arcs. And the final thing I gotta talk about when it comes to the Versus Emperor saga is, of course, Kaido and Big Mom. Kaido being the strongest creature alive, Kaido having the highest active bounty in One Piece. Kaido, of course, his powers is insane. He's known as the strongest creature alive. He has a mythical zone. He wants to be Joy Boy. The writing writes himself on the wall. He destroyed Luffy and Curry. Yeah, Kaido took on the entire world in Wano. And then we also have Big Mom arriving and not being scared of Kaido. Big Mom, that big bad threat. That's to Yonko when Big Mom arrives and having a connection because of rocks. And she pulls up. She actually goes against Queen. She goes against Luffy and President Udon. She goes against Kaido. And they decide to team up to get the One Piece. And then, of course, she gets taken down by 2 awakened users that gained 3 billion berry bounties for taking out Big Mom. She's a natural disaster of a beast. And I'll be honest with you guys, kind of Big Mom was the pinnacle of 2 villains. Like, they had to separate them on the rooftop. That's how powerful they were. And then, of course, Oda could not put his foot off the gas after Kaido and Big Mom. You have to be on the same level or around that level when it comes to villains. And he does that with, of course, Saturn and Kizaru. Saturn being a Kongrasaki user that has mythical powers bestowed upon him by Imu. And, of course, it looks like he's from the Void Century. I'll be honest with you, Saturn had some crazy unique abilities, and he's immortal. Like, the fact that he's immortal, that it's in and of itself surpasses Kaido and Big Mom's when it comes to durability. Like, being immortal means you just keep getting back up. And then, of course, we had Kizaru, the fastest man in One Piece. Literally talks about speed being weighed, taking on Luffy in not just gear 4th but also gear 5th, and doing relatively not that bad and helping Luffy too at some points. Now, of course, I must admit Kizaru did have a mental nerve. That's why it's like Saturn had to take over when it comes to Nika. But still, I must admit, these were 2 world government villains that were pretty unique when it comes to the story arc. And then you have to talk about Rob Lucci and how Rob Lucci, you could even add Aiken Island. Oda said, okay, an admiral and a Gorosei member, let's just put the strongest CP0 agent as well, because that's how we're going to equal up to the 2 Yonkos in Wano. And Rob Lucci, regardless of what you want to say about him, he did a great job. First of all, he awakened his Delver ability and he fought Luffy. He fought Gear 5th Luffy in a great battle. It gave us great entertainment. I loved it. Vegapunk was literally doing commentary like he was Greg Sager or Kevin Harlan or Marv Albert. But yeah, I loved it. And then, of course, he goes and fights Luffy's vice captain in Zoro. King of Hell mode, not there yet. But of course, Kakurasaki coding was on Zoro's sword. And Zoro does him badly. Like, he actually beats him. It was not a low diff, but it was a mid diff. But the funny thing is, Raobuchi wasn't down. That's what these awakened zones. He wasn't down, and Jimmy had to come in and take him down because we didn't have much time. The Gorosei were here, so Rob Lucci did the job. He did the job. So now it makes me think, what other villains could be there during Elbaf? And the one prime candidate I've always thought about is Eustace Kid. Eustace Captain Kid has a 3 billion berry bounty. He lost to Shanks. This is an arc revolved around Shanks, with the new lookalike Shanks coming down with the Holy Knight, and of course the Loki, speaking of Shanks. So Eustace Kid is a great candidate, of course. We know he's going to bounce back after taking that divine departure, and he is Luffy's rival, regardless of what you want to say. So we could see a Eustace Kid Luffy battle that could be of the legendary proportions. Luffy is way stronger than Kid right now. Like, I'll be honest with you, Luffy is like incredibly powerful. He's literally on Shanks' level as a Yonko, but still, I think Eustace Kid could definitely make some moves in improving his power and making a good story element to it. Then there's Green Bull. Green Bull literally pulled up to Wano looking for Luffy to impress Akainu. Now, of course, Shanks, I told you guys. Now, of course, just like Eustace Kid, Green Bull became a victim of Shanks, and this is Elbaf Shanks' arc. So yeah, he definitely has connections to Elbaf. Of course, his Delver ability is literally about trees and forest, and Elbaf has a great forest, like underworlds and heaven realm. Like, we have some cool stuff in Elbaf when it comes to the scenery, so he'll fit at home with the Atom Tree there as well. Imagine he could do something with the Atom Tree in his Delver ability. Yeah, Green Bull is a great candidate for being a villain in, of course, Elbaf. Now, I must admit, how to say this, I think Green Bull being here, let's be honest, Luffy should mop Green Bull, because what he did to Kizaru, he should mop Green Bull. But I think if it's the 2 villain element, Green Bull could definitely be that second villain in this arc. And he just took out Weevil. Like, Green Bull's not a scrub, guys. He took a Kongrasaki coding attack from Yamato. He took on King and Queen, even though they're nerfed because of course they weren't recovered. I have to admit, Green Bull does have some power to him. He literally just fought for the story, I think, during the Reverie. So yeah, Green Bull is a guy. Now, I must admit, the final guy I want to talk about when it comes to Elbaf is Loki. But Loki is slowly losing that villain aura. Let me explain. The reason why I think Loki is losing that villain aura is because that conversation we recently had in the recent chapter on Mosuka, or whatever that guy's name is, that Denden Mushi, because Loki was literally, the guy called Loki a nice guy. Like, he's like, they're trying to make Loki a good guy. Even Luffy is downplaying Loki's aura of evil intention. Like, why did he kill King Harold? Is there more to his story? Then of course he has information on Shanks. I told you all these characters have the connections to Shanks. Eustace Kid, Green Bull, Loki, and even the Shanks lookalike. It's a Shanks centered arc. And of course, Shanks is going to be dealing with something completely different with Blackbeard, and I'll talk about that in another video. But still, I think Loki could definitely be a great candidate because he has a legendary devil fruit, and he has a 2.6 billion berry bounty, and he's the strongest giant. But his aura of a villain is something's off about it. Then I got to talk about Figarland Garling. Oda's been hyping up this dude once he killed the Celestial Dragon that came to Fisherman Island, part of the Don Quixote family. Yeah, that was pretty intense. And then of course he was dominant in God Valley, fought Roger, confirmed to fight Roger in God Valley. Oda recently even said in an interview that Figarland Garling is incredibly powerful, and God Valley is the reason for that. Even Whitebeard might have acknowledged him if he got a scar from him, but we do not know yet. Of course, the fact that he's a Gorosei replacing Saturn, who is powerful in his own right, he could be the strongest Gorosei with, of course, once his gets his power bestowed upon him by Imu. Then of course his son is in his prime as well, that just came to Elbaf, and of course he has 2 arms instead of 1 like Shanks. Like, there's so much hype for Figarland. And of course chapter 1121, both of them are in the cover, that final page, Figarland Garling and Figarland whatever his name is. I believe these 2 Holy Knights will have like a Akatsuki vibes, Itachi vibes with of course the Shanks lookalike, and of course they're gonna have a boost in power through Imu. I think Imu is gonna give them some sort of mythical power, like the Gorosei. And of course, Shanks's brother, like how I say is, imagine we see Shanks' brother and he doesn't have Kamisaki. Shanks is the hockey man. So I think Figarland Garling, his son, and Shanks, they all have hockey, of course, to extreme levels. But I truly believe that this character, Oda even made an interview recently and hyped him up, saying he's gonna like cause damage in Elbaf. He has to be different. He has a cloak on, for goodness sakes, and it'll be cool. I think this guy could be the main villain of Elbaf. He could do it. Elbaf's War, strongest Holy Knight, could be the main villain, and it could elevate the Holy Knights as threats in general when it comes to revolutionary. So yeah, I'm excited, I'm hyped, and I think this is great for the story.